When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
This is Cindy Burnett. Welcome to my award-winning podcast, Thoughts from a Page, a member of the Evergreen Podcast Network. On this show, I chat with authors whose books I have enjoyed about their new releases and others in the book world about the books they have loved. With so many books coming out weekly, it can be hard to decide what to read, so I find the best ones and share them with you. In a similar vein, I recently released my 17-page 2025 Winter Reading Guide that highlights 45 recent and upcoming releases, plus new titles in book series, fiction, nonfiction pairings, stellar mystery series, and some anticipated spring and summer releases. All of these will make great reads for this winter and spring. I strive to find those under-the-radar gems. If you're interested, fill out the Google form in the show notes and submit a tip of your choosing. Today, Kelly Hooker returns to chat about our favorite books of January through March of 2025. These are some of my favorite episodes because I always love to hear what has resonated with Kelly, what works for her, why she liked it, and I end up always adding books to my list. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
That's your money saying it's time for a McDonald's run. Because with new McValue at McDonald's, you get more than you expect. Like buy a 6-piece McNuggets and add a McChicken for just $1. Your money says let's go. Get more than you expect with new McValue. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Welcome, Kelly. How are you today?
I am doing good. It is pouring down rain here, and so all I want to do is talk about books and then cozy up and read books.
Rainy weather is perfect for cozying up and reading. I totally agree with that.
It is. How are you today?
I'm great. I really love these episodes where we talk about our favorites from a particular quarter. It's just so interesting to see what has worked.
Yes, and I think with this selection of books, we have less overlap on our favorites than we have had in previous seasons.
Which I found so interesting because you and I both struggled a little bit with this quarter of books. Tons of great books came out, but also we both felt like some other books that didn't resonate quite as well were also coming out with more regularity than they normally do. So it was harder to sometimes find the better books. So I thought for sure we were going to overlap more.
Yes, there's so many quality books in this mix, but it was like finding a diamond in the rough to get to this place.
I agree. There was just more that didn't work for me than normal. And that's okay. That's part of it, but it is interesting. But I love the 12 that I came up with, and I know you do too for yours.
Yes.
And we overlap with 2. So we're going to talk about those together at the front, and then we're going to each go in publication order and alternate talking about our other 10. But before we do that, do you want to talk a little bit about the lookbook?
I would love to. On April 29th, we are launching our 4th literary lookbook. If you're not familiar with the lookbook, we create these to help booksellers, librarians, and readers have a comprehensive but not exhaustive resource of upcoming releases for the next season. So our last lookbook featured nearly 600 titles that we had organized by publication date, and it also features all of the covers of the books. We include books from a variety of genres and publishers, and then we feature debut authors as well as tried and true favorites, and the lookbook will be available for purchase.
And we're really hoping we're not going to hit that 600 number again.
That was a lot. I hope, yes, that the publishing world slows down slightly and we can get back to a more reasonable number. Previous lookbooks had about 400 titles, and that felt great.
I agree with that. Well, are you ready to dive in?
I am.
All right. Do you want to go first?
Sure. My first book that I want to talk about that we overlapped on is Good Dirt by Charmaine Wilkerson, and this came out January 28th. Charmaine is the author of Black Cake, which is a book that I also loved. In her sophomore novel, Wilkerson emphasizes the importance of telling history through multiple perspectives. So we meet this 10-year-old girl named Ebby, and she witnessed the tragic murder of her older brother, and she's carried the grief of that unsolved case into adulthood. Old Mo, a stoneware jar passed down from their enslaved ancestors and cherished as a family heirloom, was shattered during the crime in the Freeman's home in an affluent white neighborhood. So the lore of the jar holds not only the Freeman family history, but also the complex legacy of Black Americans. It was so beautiful the way that Wilkerson explores how personal tragedy shapes identity and also how inherited stories influence future generations. And that was Good Dirt by Charmaine Wilkerson. What did you love about this one?
I loved that the focus was on a wealthy Black family because I feel like there are not enough stories that focus on prominent families such as the Freemans. And I thought that was really interesting. I loved the stone jar. I loved all the family drama and the toggling back and forth with the time periods. This was a book club pick for one of my book clubs here in Richmond. We had the best discussion. I mean, it went on and on and on. We talked about so many aspects of the book. So I definitely think if you're looking for a good book club pick, Good Dirt is it.
That's interesting you say that because we did Black Cake for my local book club this year, and that also was a great discussion and thought-provoking read.
I still need to read Black Cake.
I think that you'll really like it.
Yes, this is reminding me I need to go pick it up.
What is our next overlap book?
So our second one is Dead Money by Jacob Kerr. He was one of the first employees at Airbnb, so he is intimately familiar with the world of startups in Silicon Valley, and his experiences really inform this twisty, funny, and clever thriller. The controversial CEO of tech's hottest startup, Journey, with no E, of course, because no tech startup can spell their name correctly, has just been murdered, leaving behind billions in dead money frozen in his will. Mackenzie Clyde, a fixer for the venture capital company that invested heavily in Journey, is brought in to help consult and solve the murder. But her help is not welcomed by the FBI. What I loved about this one is that it is so intelligently constructed and the wild and surreal world of the tech industry comes alive on the page. Nothing is as it seems, and it just kept me on the edge of my seat. I think this debut is a clear standout in the genre, and I think it will appeal to those who like smart thrillers that keep the reader guessing, and it's by far the best thriller I have read this year, and that is Dead Money by Jacob Kerr. What did you like about it?
It is also the best thriller that I have read this year. I thought the backdrop of Silicon Valley was so fresh, and the book was just a really smart read. I like how the lawyer, our main protagonist, found herself in the midst of this crime. I want to hear more about your interview with Jacob because his career as a lawyer in the tech industry brings such an authentic insider feel to his debut novel. It just was such a smart, accessible, non-techy story that readers like myself who aren't super into the tech world can really get on board with.
I was just going to comment about my conversation with him, so you led me right into it. Because I said to him, this clearly is probably going to be the next subgenre of thrillers in terms of like set in certain arenas, like the law firms of the 1980s and 90s. And then I can't even think of what the next one was. But the tech world is kind of the latest iteration of that. And he and I talked a lot about that and how there's so much money in tech now and that thrillers usually follow the money in terms of where everybody is doing really well and where it would make sense to have some crimes set. So it was a very interesting conversation. I really enjoyed chatting with him.
Yes, that was a fun listen. If you haven't listened to the interview yet, here's your plug.
Exactly. And I'll link it in the show notes.
Perfect.
So now we're moving on to the 10 that we don't overlap on, though I did really like several of the ones you're going to mention. What's your first one?
My first book is The Favorites by Layne Fargo, and this came out January 14th. Getting completely drawn into a cutthroat story about competitive ice dancing was not on my winter bingo card, but here we are. This skating saga of tumultuous love and diehard ambition follows orphans Katarina Shaw and Heath Roca as they chase Olympic gold. This is a multimedia story, so we've got this full cast audio, and it reads like a juicy tell-all documentary. And we get to hear from coaches, teammates, and members of the press. And these characters all just jump right off the page. With backstabbings and betrayals amidst the triple axles, this was such a great book to get lost in. Here's my one qualm. It is nearly 450 pages, so you need to be prepared for a lot of drama and angst. But overall, it was a really great read, albeit slightly longer than it needed to be. Pick this up if you love a good comeback story or have ever been deeply moved by a Taylor Swift song. That was The Favorites by Layne Fargo.
So I will say that I really did enjoy this one, but when I first heard about this one initially, it did not sound like it would be up my alley, like just over-dramatized stuff, all the angst as you're mentioning, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It didn't make my top 12, but I did really like it, and I didn't even feel like it was overly long, which is kind of funny.
Oh, that is interesting. I think I read it on my Kindle, and just knowing the genre, I wasn't expecting it to be a longer book, and I had no idea how long it was. I couldn't really tell on the Kindle, and so then it just kept going on, and I was like, oh, well, we're still here. I'm liking it, but here we go.
The thing that's interesting to me about that book is that there was so much pre-pub chatter about it. I mean, so many people that pre-read were talking a lot about it, and I felt like it was everywhere pre-publication. I feel like post-publication, I haven't heard very much about it at all.
Oh, interesting. Well, it was a Book of the Month Club selection, and I think there was the tragic airline crash, and many of the U.S. figure skating team members were on board that plane, and it was right around the time that Layne Fargo's book came out. And so I do think that new readers came to the book kind of in the aftermath of that tragedy.
I hadn't even thought about that or connected that. It's just interesting when there's a book like that you hear so much about ahead of time. And then I don't see posts about it hardly at all now. So I just was kind of curious. It hasn't been very long.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason that stuck with me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, what is next for you?
So my first favorite that we don't share is The Unexpected Diva by Tiffany L. Warren, and it came out January 7th. It's narrated in the first person, and it is a fictionalized account of the life of Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield, a Black opera singer in pre-Civil War America. She's raised in the safety of Pennsylvania's Quaker community, and her life drastically changes when her white adoptive mother dies and her family disputes her inheritance and wins. Her extraordinary 3-octave voice allows her to defy societal norms to pursue her dream of becoming a professional opera singer, gaining acclaim as the Black Swan in the United States and Europe. While the book's main focus is her story, it also depicts what it was like for Black citizens in pre-Civil War America, regardless of where they lived. Black patrons were often not allowed to attend her concerts, even in the North, and when they could, protesters were out in full force. Slave traders came from the southern states to trap slaves or other Black people who had fled the South. Anyone who was Black, even free Blacks, could be grabbed by these traders and sold to plantations. Choosing to tell the story from Eliza's perspective was really effective, making the story feel deeply personal and allowing readers to glimpse how Eliza perceived her success and travails. I have not seen very much about this one, which is such a shame, because it is really an engaging and interesting book. And it will appeal to anyone who likes to learn about someone forgotten by history, as well as those who love to be transported to another time period. And that is The Unexpected Diva by Tiffany L. Warren, and it came out January 7th.
You always do such a good job of finding stories, just like you mentioned, that shine a light on women from history. And it's such a fun niche that you found.
I do really enjoy that. I feel like all of these people's stories need to be told. And I had never heard of her, so it was really interesting to learn about her.
Yes, that sounds like it.
What's up next for you?
More or Less Maddy by Lisa Genova, and this came out January 14th. Lisa is the author of Still Alice, which is a book I read years ago and loved. And in More or Less Maddy, she also incorporates her work as a neuroscientist. With humor and heart, More or Less Maddy captures the experience of a young woman diagnosed with bipolar disorder when she's a freshman in college. The story is told from Maddy's perspective, which offers a really fascinating look into the mind of someone experiencing delusions. And we're in Maddy's head. And so these lines between reality and mania are really blurred for her as well as for us as the reader. At times, Maddy is crippled by her diagnosis, and at others, she is determined to chase her dreams to become a stand-up comedian, which I thought was such a fun addition to the story because it added a lot of levity. I love the way that Lisa Genova gently confronts readers with their own perceptions and stigmas of mental health disorders. Through Maddy's search for meaning and identity after her diagnosis, I was reminded that people are so much more than a label or their diagnosis. This is actually the first book that I had read as a reader being placed inside the mind of someone with bipolar disorder. And because of Genova's sensitive portrayal, I'm really grateful to have spent the time there. And that was More or Less Maddy by Lisa Genova.
I agree that it's an important book, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I tried to start it, and it was too rough for me. Like, being in her head, I felt it was a tough read.
I think because my kids are little, and I haven't yet had to worry about their mental health, and as a parent, what that might feel like, I wonder if some of those things that maybe felt hard for you, I was able to just let them kind of breeze on by. Worry about that in 10 years.
That's a very good point, actually. I just was horrified. I was like, I cannot read this book. I do think it's a very important subject matter, and I'm glad she tackled it, but I do think it will be a tough read for some people.
That makes sense, yes. Okay, what is next for you?
So my next one is a really fun read. It's In Gad We Trust, a tell-some by Josh Gad, and it's a memoir. Instead of a tell-all, it's a tell-some, and it came out January 14th. I will start out by saying that I am a huge fan of Josh Gad. I have seen him in numerous Broadway shows, and he is just so funny. And of course, he voices Olaf in Frozen, which is how most people know him. I have to read the publisher's description for this one because, of course, it's hilarious. For the first and possibly last time, Josh Gad dives into a wide array of personal topics. The lasting impact of his parents' divorce, how he struggled with weight and self-image, his first big break, how everyone was sure his most successful ventures would fail, his take on fatherhood, and more. This trip down the rabbit hole of overly personal stories will distract readers from climate change, the downward descent of democracy in Western civilization, and the existential threat that AI poses to Drake's music, with never-before-seen photos and a few to no spelling errors. I listened to this one, which he narrates, and I'm an even bigger fan of his now than I was before I read it. He is a fabulous individual who is very talented, and he has a great story to share with people. I highly, highly recommend this one, and that's In Gad We Trust, a tell-some by Josh Gad, and it came out January 14th.
I love the tell-some. That's a fun distinction.
I know.
Okay, I've got 2 heavy books coming up next, so just bear with me. They're nonfiction, so I'm glad you added a little bit of levity into the conversation. My next read is The Mother Next Door by Andrea Dunlop and Mike Weber, and it came out February 4th. This nonfiction book is a compelling exploration of 3 mothers investigated for Munchausen by proxy. Many victims start with a legitimate medical need, often prematurity, and these needs become exaggerated by their mothers to the point of placing the child in grave danger. The author's passion for these perplexing cases was so evident because they have this personal connection. Andrea Dunlap's sister was investigated but never charged for medical child abuse, and Detective Mike Weber has spent his entire career devoted to helping vulnerable children avoid unnecessary medical procedures. So this Munchausen by proxy is all that he works with as a detective. It was fascinating to learn about the legal barriers to prosecuting these cases because the cases aren't straightforward at all. When the perpetrator, a mother, is this charming, successful mother, it's really easy to dupe family members, medical professionals, and a jury. And it makes sense because we do have this inherent desire to trust people, especially a mother, when they're telling us something. So while this is a deep dive into the legal system, the medical terms are presented in layman's terms. This is such a bingeable story, and it sheds light on the little-known crime with big consequences. That was The Mother Next Door by Andrea Dunlop and Mike Weber.
I have been so intrigued by Munchausen by proxy since I was young. I'm sure I saw some after-school special or something where a mother was doing that, but it's just horrifying. Like, how could someone do that to their child? I'm going to have to read this one.
I think that you'll find it fascinating, just the psychology behind how a mother could put their child through this. It's horrifying, but it is interesting to get inside of that mindset.
To try to understand it.
Exactly.
The next book for me is What Happened to the McCraes by Tracy Layne, which came out January 14th. The queen of compelling family dramas returns with her best novel yet. a story that is both heartwarming and heartbreaking. Several years earlier, Kyle McRae fled his hometown of Potsdam, New York, leaving his ex-wife and father behind. When his father suffered a stroke, Kyle reluctantly returned to help, but he dreaded his homecoming after abandoning his family in the town. As the story toggles between the past and the present, Kyle's life with his wife Casey unfolds in both timelines. While home, he also gets drawn into coaching the middle school hockey team, and those scenes in the story are standouts. Lang's relatable, everyday characters who struggle to make their way in the world will resonate with readers who will see themselves in the people she writes. The themes of grief, mental health, relationships, aging, and community that are woven throughout the book are evergreen and relevant to all of us. Have tissues ready, because What Happened to the McRaes is a tearjerker at times. It will be a great fit for fans of family dramas and compelling stories. And my 24-year-old daughter is a big fan of Tracy's as well, and she loved this one so much she just recently finished it. I interviewed Tracy for the podcast, and we had a really great discussion about a variety of things. This is one of those episodes that I definitely want to highlight. It stands out for me. So if you have a chance to listen to it, I would highly recommend that. And that is What Happened to the McRaes by Tracy Lang, which came out January 14th.
This is one of those books that's been everywhere, but I have not picked it up yet. And so I plan to do that after we are done with our summer reading guides. So this summer, I will definitely be sure to read that.
It's so good.
I can't wait. My next book is Seeking Shelter by Jeff Hobbs, and it came out February 4th. This is also a narrative nonfiction book that offers a window into the life of a determined mother raising 6 children in Los Angeles without stable housing. Looking to escape gang life, domestic abuse, and pursuing the best education for her children, Evelyn moved away from her familial support system in the desert to LA with only a hopeful dream and a prayer. For 5 years, Evelyn lived in fear of social services, and she slept with her children in their car or various hotel rooms across the city. This harrowing uphill battle was marked by avoiding social services that could provide assistance, but if she went to social services, her oldest son would have been separated from her in the family shelters. So she did not want that. Her primary goal was to keep them in school for a good education and to keep their family together. And so as a result, she made the choice to not engage with social services. Evelyn's story really challenged my preconceived notions about homelessness because she worked full-time at Applebee's, she volunteered at her children's school, and she wasn't plagued by addiction or laziness. She was very hardworking. Seeking Shelter is an illuminating look into the housing crisis, economic disparity, and the heart of a mother committed to set her children up for success. That was Seeking Shelter by Jeff Hobbs.
That sounds like another really important and interesting read.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I'm glad I picked it up.
I bet.
Uh-oh, the last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clare. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Okay, what's next for you?
My next book is Head Cases by John McMahon, which came out January 28th. I don't think I'm ever leaving January. The Patterns and Recognition Team at the FBI, derogatorily referred to as the Head Cases by other FBI agents, is hunting a killer who is slowly murdering other serial killers and leaving clues and riddles for the PAR team to decipher. Their leader, Gardner Camden, is neurodivergent, and his intellect often inhibits his ability to effectively interact with others. The unit is composed of outcast agents who are all misfits who have been assigned there because something they worked on previously went sideways. But each individual is also incredibly bright and views things from very creative viewpoints. The quirky characters are well-crafted, the mystery is a puzzler, and the twists and turns are so engaging. And while the focus is on finding the killer, McMahon does a wonderful job weaving in details about the characters' personal lives and what makes them tick. The fact that the murderer is killing other serial killers also makes this a more thought-provoking mystery than you often find. This is the start to a new series, and I'm already excited for book 2. It's fun to read a series as it's first coming out because you don't have to worry about going back and adding so many books to your TBR to get caught up, which I just love. My husband loved this one as well, and for my Houston listeners, Murder by the Book has a cameo. Head Cases is a good fit for people who like intelligent mysteries with unique protagonists, and that's Head Cases by John McMahon. It came out January 28th.
I have seen nothing but good reviews on this one.
It's really a great mystery, much like Dead Money is a great thriller. This is a great mystery.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Next for me is The Snowbirds by Christina Clancey, and it came out February 4th. The Snowbirds explores the age-old question, is this all there is to life? This is a really heartfelt story of a decades-long relationship between Kim and Grant. They find themselves at a crossroads in midlife and wondering if their paths will diverge after all these years together, but unmarried. They head to Palm Springs to escape the Midwest winter and seek clarity on their next steps in life. I loved the way that Christina Clancey thoughtfully explored Kim and Grant's backstories leading to their relationship crisis. As a reader, I felt that I had the full picture of each character, their shortcomings and what they brought to the relationship, and ultimately their different dreams. As I was reading the book, the quirky side characters really stuck out with me, and I just adored them. That, as well as the dialogue, were giving me Stephen Rowley / the Gunkel vibes. After I finished the book and was reading the author's acknowledgments, I saw Christina referenced her close relationship with Stephen Rowley, and so I can certainly see that connection. That was The Snowbirds by Christina Clancey.
As soon as you were saying it gave you Stephen Rowley vibes, I was just getting ready to say they're really good friends, but then you figured that out.
I did. It was so fun to see that overlap.
My next book is Beartooth by Callan Wink, which came out February 11th. Faced with losing their family home due to large medical bills following the loss of their father, two brothers, Hazen and Thad, struggle to make ends meet. Residing in Montana on the edge of Yellowstone National Park, the brothers resort to illegal poaching jobs to survive, including a large, risky one that goes terribly awry. While the heist storyline is enthralling, the true draw to me of Beartooth is Wink's ability to transport the reader to this stunning but often inhospitable landscape. The setting is just brought to life so vividly. Moreover, his characters are well drawn and complex, and the in-depth exploration of family relationships and the roles family dynamics play in those relationships is really engaging. Wink explores birth order and the way family roles are often set early in life and how hard it can be to break out of those expectations and roles. He also focuses on the struggles that exist between some of the property owners who live adjacent to national parks and those who are charged with protecting the parks, which is a subject matter that is always so intriguing to me. This short book packs a huge punch, and fans of Peter Heller's books and other stories set in nature and the backwoods will love this melancholy but ultimately hopeful tale. And that is Beartooth by Callan Wink. It came out February 11th.
I love when a book takes a setting and really brings it to life, so it's really a character in and of itself.
I agree completely. Those are my favorite stories. I'm almost always drawn to them.
Me too. Next for me is Dream State by Eric Puchner, and this came out February 18th. Dream State is a compelling multi-generational story that beautifully examines how small decisions shape the course of a life. At its heart are the complex dynamics of three friends and a deep betrayal that unfolds over decades. A cherished family lake house in Montana serves as an anchor for the friends throughout their lives. Puchner masterfully captures these pivotal moments of their lives through vivid vignettes, exploring the intricacies of friendship, parenthood, and marriage. He also gives us unique perspectives as the story unfolds, which kept me engaged. Like, oh, I didn't realize we were going to get to hear from this character. And so that was a fun surprise. This is a lengthy, character-driven novel. But if you appreciate literary writing and a well-crafted sentence brings you joy, this book is for you. It really reminded me of the style of Clare Lombardo's books, Same as It Ever Was, and The Most Fun We Ever Had. That was Dream State by Eric Puchner.
Even though we have different books on our list, I laugh at how some of them share so much. I talked about quirky characters. You talked about quirky characters. My book was set in Montana. Your book is set in Montana. Isn't that funny?
That is, especially because we haven't shared our list or anything, and those are just very specific nuances of a book.
I agree. And the books are so different. It's just kind of funny that they still share characteristics.
They overlap in that way, yeah.
So next up is one that I have been talking about for months. So this will surprise no one. And it's Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell, which came out February 18th. When Sierra Faye makes a split-second decision to grab a few clothes and her 2 young daughters and flee, she knows that leaving is the right thing to do. But she finds that staying away is much harder than the leaving ever was. With no job and little support, she struggles to find a home for her girls and herself as her emotionally abusive husband, Ryan, launches an unrelenting campaign for her to come back home. Navigating the broken Irish housing system and constantly second-guessing herself, Sierra bravely fights the odds in this compelling tale of survival and the effects of enduring the long-term consequences of emotional abuse. O'Donnell's vivid prose brings to life the unsettling brutality of gaslighting and coercive partner control, where the bruises are not physical, and she keeps the suspense taut and gripping. Her sense of place is very strong, and learning about the Irish housing system crisis was very interesting, I thought. This beautiful book will appeal to those who enjoy character-driven tales focusing on making your own way, trauma, loss, and love. I have been thrilled to see how well this book is being received. It has been all over Instagram, and it is rated really highly on Goodreads, which makes me so happy. And that is Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell, which came out February 18th.
I picked this up last month after you were raving about it, and I really thought it was so well done, too.
Her writing is just beautiful.
I believe she was nominated for, was it the Booker Prize?
I'm not totally certain, unfortunately. I should know that.
I saw there was recently, this book was included potentially as a nomination.
Oh, great.
And typically I'm not drawn to prize-winning books of that sort, but this one I was surprised to see on there.
That's really interesting because I'm not generally drawn to the Booker Prize nominees either. I usually look through the list and I'm like, nope. So that's really interesting.
Yes, definitely worth a read.
Absolutely.
Okay, my next book is The Quiet Librarian by Alan Eskens, and it came out February 18th. I tore through this book so fast. The book is about Hannah Babic, and after fleeing war-torn Bosnia, she sought a fresh start as a librarian in Minnesota, and she's embracing a quiet new life. But when her best friend is murdered, Hannah discovers she cannot escape her past as a military legend, no matter how far she runs. She refuses to sit idly by as tragedy strikes, and so she takes matters into her own hands as she reveals the truth behind her friend's murder and her own buried history. The Quiet Librarian is a dual timeline mystery, rich with historical details and brimming with danger around every corner. I could not turn these pages fast enough to uncover the fates of these vividly drawn characters. If you love to read about elaborate revenge plots, this is the book for you. That was The Quiet Librarian by Alan Eskens.
Okay, I need to pick this one up because you're like the third person who's been raving about it that I usually trust their recommendations, so I'm going to have to grab it.
Yes, please do.
Okay, good. So my next one is Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister, and it came out February 25th. Camilla's life is about to change in the blink of an eye. Her maternity leave is ending, and she plans to drop her baby daughter at daycare for the first time and resume her job as a literary agent. Instead, when she wakes up that morning, her husband Luke is gone, and he has left her a very mysterious note. As she watches the TV while getting ready, she hears that a hostage situation is developing in London, and moreover, the police have visited her to tell her that Luke is in the midst of it all, but instead of being a hostage, he is the gunman. I love how McAllister subverts the usual thriller conventions in her books, as well as always focusing on the women in the stories. And the wonderful thing about the women is they are strong, likable, regular women instead of unreliable narrators, alcoholics, or on drugs. There are so many great twists and turns that kept me guessing. Her ability to keep me in the dark is fabulous, and I really liked how this one played out. This book is set partly in the publishing world, which I always find very entertaining and enjoyable since I obviously love to read a lot. Famous Last Words will appeal to those who like intelligent thrillers that keep the reader guessing, and for those who enjoy new takes on standard tropes. And that's Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. Came out February 25th.
I'm glad you mentioned this book because I totally forgot about it. It would have made my list too.
Well, that's what happened to me when I first sent you my list. I had another book, which I also loved. But then I was looking back through my stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't even have Famous Last Words on here. So I had to boot another and slot this one in.
I'm glad you did.
It's a good one.
You can speak for both of us there. Next for me is Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. This came out February 25th. Deep Cuts is both a love letter to the indie music of the early 2000s and a compelling coming-of-age journey of self-discovery. What I want to say about this book is, yes, it's a music book, but you don't have to be a big music fan to enjoy the story. This completely immersive debut begins in a Berkeley College bar as aspiring songwriter Percy Marks and aspiring musician Joe Morrow listen to music from a jukebox. As Joe asks Percy for feedback on one of his songs, they are thrust into a complicated relationship that spans decades and continents. The story explores so well the blurry lines between just kind of helping a friend out and intellectual property theft and where we draw that line. With angst and nostalgia, Holly Brickley captures the tender time of finding a voice in the midst of early adulthood, betrayal, and the magnetic draw of young love. We hosted Holly for Chapters and Chats in March, and it was so exciting to hear from her. Her father is a songwriter, so she grew up with this part of her childhood. I am so eager for the screen adaptation because I want to see some of these songs come to life off the page. That was Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley.
And I really like the cover on that one as well.
It is so good. It's perfect.
Good.
Yes.
So my next book is Follow Me to Africa by Penny Haw, which came out February 25th. This fantastic book is historical fiction inspired by the story of Mary Leakey, who carved her own path to become one of the world's most distinguished paleoanthropologists. It's a dual timeline tale that explores the consequences of our choices, the wisdom that comes with time and reflection, and the relationships that make us who we are. The sense of place is outstanding. I feel like I say that over and over again. Obviously, that is something that is important to me. Haw transported me to the plains of Africa, and Africa in the 1930s and 1940s before the area was more developed and when animals were still truly roaming everywhere. Learning how long it took to travel anywhere and what all was involved in living so remotely was so interesting to me. Haw creates a fictional character, Grace, to help relay Mary's story, which works really well for this book. That can be a very hit or miss thing for me when it's biographical fiction and some random fictional person is inserted in the story, but it's very successful here. This book is a great fit for fans of well-crafted historical fiction based on fact and trailblazing women, and for those who want to read historical fiction but are tired of World War II stories. And that is Follow Me to Africa by Penny Haw. It came out February 25th.
This is another book I haven't heard a ton about, but it sounds so good.
I agree with that. I have not seen it hardly anywhere, and the reviews on Goodreads are really good again, so I wish more people would pick it up. It's so interesting and just beautifully told. She lives in South Africa, so she spent a very long time in Africa and has been to these places numerous times, and you can tell.
I love that personal connection.
I agree.
The next book for me is Broken Country by Clare Leslie Hall, and this came out March 4th. Some stories make my heart just swell and my emotions flow like water, and Broken Country is one such unforgettable story. This is masterful, timeless storytelling. In a small English farm village lives a happily married woman who mourns the tragic death of her son. When her first love moves back to town, it sets into motion a series of life-changing events. Debut author Clare Leslie Hall paints a vivid picture of a tumultuous love triangle set amidst this simple pastoral life. A steady sense of foreboding really looms heavy over these pages, and it just does not let up the entire time. Themes of sacrifice, the power of a first love, and deep loyalty make this story one worth reading. It is such a gut punch, but it's a really beautiful one. So I want to mention that this book is very different plot-wise from These Silent Woods and Go as a River, but the themes in all of these books made me feel the same way. So I wanted to mention that if you like the feeling you had when you read These Silent Woods and Go as a River, Broken Country might be for you. We are hosting Clare on May 18th for Chapters and Chats, and I can't wait to hear from her. This will be a top read of the year for me. If you'd like to join us for that spoiler-filled author chat, send me a message on Instagram or email me at kellyhook.readsbooks@gmail.com. And that was Broken Country by Clare Leslie Hall.
So I liked this one fine, but not nearly as much as many people seem to be. I gave it 4 stars. It just won't be one of my top reads. Poor Frank. Like, that would be the worst if something like that happened to you, you know?
Definitely.
I don't know. For some reason, I just can't move past it. But like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I did like it. It's beautifully written.
Okay, good. What is next for you?
Hair by Chloe Dalton, which came out March 4th. During the COVID lockdown in the English countryside, Dalton stumbles across a leveret, which is a baby hare, in the middle of a field and brings it home, where she quickly realizes that she will now need to care for it because she pulled it out of its environment. As she learns to feed it and take care of it, with little guidance, because raising a hare is quite rare. And I will pop in here too and say, while rabbits are often human pets, hares are not domesticated and they're very different animals and they're rarely raised by humans. So she couldn't go with anything that people had about raising rabbits, which I thought was interesting. So what results is an unlikely relationship between her and the hare, a development that completely changes the way Dalton views the world. She alters the spaces in her home to accommodate the hare and develops an unlikely bond with the animal. This book contains so many beautiful passages that I stopped to absorb and reflect on, and that also helped me evaluate how I move about in our world. I loved Raising Hare from beginning to end, and it is a quick read. I read it in one day. This book is good for readers who enjoy a strong sense of place, as well as for fans of stories about nature, animals, and making connections. Chloe posts delightful pictures of hare on both her Instagram account and her website, so if you want to check them out, it's really fun to see the animal in its own habitat and also how hare interacts within Chloe's house and in the environs around. It hit the New York Times bestseller list, which made me very happy, and I've had a lot of great feedback on that interview as well, and people reporting back how much they've loved the book. And that's Hair by Chloe Dalton, which came out March 4th.
This is such a niche little story. I think animal books over the last couple of years are really having a moment, and I love it.
But you know, it's interesting because I think people think it's going to be more niche than it is. She does talk a fair amount about the hare, but she also talks about all sorts of other things while she's in COVID lockdown and how we move in the world and trying to understand the boundaries of the wild and how things have changed over time in terms of how wild animals live with humans and our different approaches to it. It's really, I think, will resonate with more people than people think. And that's kind of what I keep hearing from people when they come back. They're like, I wasn't sure this would be the book for me, and I just loved it.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
My last book is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaghy, and it came out March 4th. Once in a great while, a book comes along that just grabs a hold of me and doesn't let go. Wild Dark Shore was that emotionally riveting book. This is a gripping blend of climate fiction and literary suspense that will easily find its way to the top of my 2025 favorites. The Salt family lives on a remote sub-Antarctic island between Tasmania and Antarctica, and they're caretakers for the world's largest seed bank. Researchers have left the island due to rising ocean tides, and the Salt family are left as the last inhabitants. That is, until a woman washes up on shore. With her arrival brings an unraveling of secrets with catastrophic consequences. To say the setting is atmospheric is a complete understatement. The setting is a character in its own right. I have loved each of Charlotte's books, but Wild Dark Shore is nothing short of incredible. It's my favorite of hers. Through themes of loss, sacrifice, and motherhood, McConaghy powerfully explores the ghosts that we carry. The story manages to be both deeply sad, yet earnestly hopeful for humanity all at the same time. We cannot wait to host Charlotte for chapters and chats on April 13th. So again, if you'd like to join, let me know. That was Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaghy.
I love her books. My favorite is Once There Were Wolves, but I really enjoyed this one too. And as you said, the setting, I mean, you just feel like you were walking on the island. And the seed vault, I ended up ordering this book on the seed vault that she uses as her inspiration, which is actually in Norway versus in the Southern Hemisphere. And it's just fascinating because I couldn't really totally get what the seed vault would look like, and I wanted to see it. But yes, it is a beautiful book, and it has great reviews as well. My book club that talked about Good Dirt is reading it next. So I think I'm going to reread it and make sure I'm totally fresh on it before we talk about it.
I think this will make a great book club pick.
I agree.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell me your last book?
Oh no, I can't believe we're already to the end. So my last book is Dissolution by Nicholas Binge, and it came out March 25th. Maggie Webb has spent the last 10 years caring for her husband, Stanley, whose memories are slowly disappearing. When a stranger shows up at her home and tells her that someone is purposely removing Stanley's memories, she is given the chance to save him. Maggie dives into her husband's memories, uncovering a decades-old feud threatening reality itself. The science fiction elements are clearly explained. The science does not bog down the story, and the relationship between Stanley and Maggie is a standout. While I thoroughly enjoyed the entire book, the ending is what truly makes it. It is so outstanding and very clever. This compelling and timely novel took me on a page-turning trek through memory and time and how we perceive both. It is also a beautiful love story, which surprised me a bit as I read the book. I had not expected that. Those portions of the book reminded me a bit of Wrong Place, Wrong Time, where she travels back and sees her family when her son was younger and her marriage was fresher. It's the same way you just talked about that Broken Country kind of reminded you of the other two stories. The stories are not at all alike. There's really nothing that they share in common other than that reflecting back on important relationships and seeing those relationships come to life again when you're older and have experienced so much more. Dissolution will appeal to those who like intelligent and thought-provoking plots, or Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and strong storytelling. My husband read this one as well and loved it every bit as much as I did, and that's Dissolution by Nicholas Benge. It came out March 25th.
Okay. You had me at Dark Matter. This is definitely one that I want to read.
It reminds me a lot of Dark Matter. Again, not the same plot at all, but the same ideas and taking something so creative and going in an interesting direction with it.
I'm definitely going to pick it up.
Yeah, it's really well worth reading.
Great.
And I think it's already been optioned to be a movie. I'm pretty sure. I feel like I've interviewed so many people lately, but I'm almost positive his is the one. And he had thought that it would be a limited series, but instead it's going to be a movie, which I actually think will work so well.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. Well, this is so much fun, and I'm always totally intrigued to see what you're going to pick versus what I'm picking, and it's fun to hear all about them, and I always end up adding a couple to my list.
Me too.
I know, our ever-growing lists.
Yes.
Well, thanks again for coming on, Kelly.
Thank you for having me, and I will look forward to our next roundup for the second quarter.
I agree, which I think is going to be chock full of books.
It is. We've already read so much from that, and it's going to be great.
I agree. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I would love to connect with you on Instagram or Facebook, where you can find me at Thoughts from a Page. If you enjoy the show and have a moment to rate it or subscribe to it wherever you listen to your podcasts, I would really appreciate it. It makes a huge difference. And please tell all of your friends about Thoughts from a Page. Word of mouth does wonders to help the show grow. I hope you'll tune in next time.